Welcome to today's Explainer. I'm so excited to jump right into this with you. Today, we're unpacking something we all deal with, the natural, chronological life cycle of workplace conflict. Because let's be real here, conflict is just a fact of organizational life. But it definitely doesn't have to be a destructive one. Actually, a moderate amount of conflict can be super healthy and even necessary for a company to grow. So we're going to break down the whole anatomy of a disagreement, literally from the moment it sparks right up to the second you shake hands on a resolution.
Here's our roadmap for today. We've got 1. The spark, 2. The environment, 3. The reaction, 4. The resolution, and finally, 5. The aftermath. Let's get right into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the spark. We're looking at the actual causes of workplace conflict. I want you to think back to a time, and I know we've all been there, when a major project just completely stalled out. You know the vibe, right? Fingers are pointing, emails are flying back and forth in all caps, all because two departments simply couldn't get on the same page about a timeline or a budget. It's incredibly frustrating. But the thing is, it rarely ever happens out of nowhere. There's almost always a predictable root cause simmering just beneath the surface. When we look at the data, our sources highlight a few common structural and interpersonal culprits. You've got your resource limitations, goal incompatibility, or just classic personality clashes. But I really want to zoom in on two main ones: task interdependence and communication breakdowns. Think about it. When your ability to cross the finish line depends entirely on someone else doing their job first, or when a simple message plays a giant game of telephone across departments and gets totally distorted, man, you have just built the perfect tinderbox for a workplace conflict. Moving right along to Section 2, the environment, specifically the empowering conflict resolver. So before that spark ever becomes a full-blown fire, leadership really sets the environmental tone. And the best proactive antidote to destructive conflict? It's something called empowering leadership. This is essentially a transformative approach where management actively hands employees the authority and the support to run with their own innovative ideas. It's a total game changer, honestly, because it bakes open communication right into the culture and encourages constructive conflict resolution from the ground up. To put some hard evidence behind this, let's look at some really fascinating recent research straight out of the Chinese manufacturing sector. They were looking at how empowering leadership impacts sustainability and overall performance. And what they found was that this style acts as a massive conflict resolver, naturally cutting down on disruptions. But here's the really cool part. The research proved that a leader's own emotional stability actually acts as an amplifier for all these positive effects. So, when a leader is emotionally stable, their ability to empower their team and manage conflicts constructively is, well, it's significantly supercharged. All right, Section 3, the reaction. Let's look at the 5 conflict handling styles. Look, even with the best leadership in the world, that spark is eventually going to happen. And when it does, human nature kicks in, and our reactions usually fall into one of 5 distinct styles. Some folks completely avoid the issue. Some accommodate, basically just giving in to keep the peace. Others compete, they want to win at all costs, or they look for a compromise, where everybody just gives up a little bit of what they want. Now, while no single method is perfect for every tiny little annoyance, when we're talking about meaningful workplace conflicts, there is one style that absolutely stands head and shoulders above the rest. And that, of course, is collaboration. Now, the absolute crucial takeaway here is that true collaboration requires both high assertiveness and high cooperation. A lot of people get this wrong. This isn't about compromising or sacrificing what you need. It's about flipping the script. You frame the conflict not as some battle you have to win, but as a mutual puzzle that you're going to solve together. It is the ultimate win-win solution where both parties really listen to each other and figure out how to fully integrate their goals. That brings us to Section 4, the resolution. We're breaking down the 5 phases of negotiation. So once we've locked into that collaborative mindset, we can transition from those informal gut reactions into a formal organizational process of resolution. Basically, we're turning disagreements into binding agreements. And we do this through a specific 5-phase model of negotiation. Let's walk through exactly how this works. All right, here are the 5 steps. You always begin with Phase 1, investigation. This is the information gathering stage, and surprisingly, it actually starts with you. There's a great point made by the famous sports agent Lee Steinberg in our sources. He says, you have to be brutally honest with yourself about your own priorities and goals before you even think about talking to the other side. Once you've done that soul searching, you move to Phase 2, to determine your alternatives. Then Phase 3, where you present your case. Phase 4 is where the actual bargaining happens. And finally, Phase 5 is closure, where everybody reaches a mutual, formal understanding. Now, I want to back up for a second because Phase 2 requires a much deeper look. It is incredibly important.
In this phase, you figure out your BATNA, which stands for Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement. In plain English, what is your backup plan if this whole deal goes south? It is absolutely critical to brainstorm and nail down your fallback option before you ever sit down to bargain. And here is a massive piece of advice from our sources. Never, ever reveal your BATNA to the other party if it's a weak one. Seriously, if they find out your alternative is worse than they thought, their offer is going to drop like a rock.
And finally, we arrive at Section 5, the aftermath, restoring trust after conflict.
Okay, so the negotiation is closed, the paperwork is signed, but guess what? The team still has to show up tomorrow and actually work together. To truly heal the team and keep performance sustainable after a clash, leaders have to put in the work to actively restore trust. According to our sources on power and leadership, this means you've got to encourage open communication, model highly ethical and positive behavior, and really foster deep engagement. The most effective leaders out there, they don't hold grudges. Instead, they adapt their leadership style to fit the new dynamic, proving that they use their authority responsibly to motivate the team going forward.
And that brings us to the end of today's explainer. Look, conflict is completely inevitable, but how you handle it, that's what defines your success. We've traced this whole life cycle from the initial spark of task interdependence right through to a collaborative resolution and finally the vital work of restoring trust. So I want to leave you with a question to chew on as you navigate your own daily workplace dynamics. Next time tensions start to rise at work, are you going to compete or are you going to collaborate? Thanks so much for watching and keep learning.